14-year-old Ember Whitmore was born of silence and smoke, raised in the forgotten veins of Lagos, where gutters hissed in the sun and children learned to disappear. She lived with her mother, Delphina, a once beautiful seamstress turned hollow-eyed wanderer whose madness danced like flames in the wind. Delphina spent her days talking to puddles and arguing with invisible spirits. Sometimes she traced shapes in the sand, calling them angels. Ember never knew her father. When she once asked, her mother whispered, "The wind took him." That was it. No name, no photo, just loss in a woman's eyes. They slept beneath a collapsed kiosk in Ahagunli, their mattress a worn carton, their blanket whatever quiet the night offered. Each morning, Ember washed her mother's face with gutter water, tucked the ripped wrapper tighter around her waist, and dragged her to their begging spot. "Don't talk today, Mama," she'd whisper. Delphina would nod, then minutes later shout about demons hiding in shoes. Market women hissed at them. "Is this a rubbish dump?" they spat. One even flung a slap of spit near Ember's toes. She didn't flinch. The insults didn't sting anymore. What stung was the pity, those long, heavy stares followed by nothing. Ember was 14, but the street had aged her soul. Her skin was tight with dust, her toes cracked open, her hair dry. Yet she watched the school children across the street like they were stars. In her heart, she still whispered, one day she'd sit in a classroom. One day she'd wear shoes. One day someone would call her name without shame. And though the world treated her like forgotten waste, Ember held on to the fire inside her, small, flickering, but alive. The smell hit Ember first: pepper, onions, and hope. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten more than soggy bread in 3 days. Her mother sat beside her on the sidewalk near a shoddy bridge, humming to herself and petting an empty water bottle like it was a newborn. Ember tried to ignore the ache in her belly, the dryness in her throat, but her eyes kept drifting across the road to a food stall painted bright yellow, where steam curled like smoke from heaven. A woman stood there, stirring jollof rice in a large pot. She was full-figured, wore a simple Ankara dress, and her eyes, unlike the rest of the city, held no disgust. Minutes later, the woman crossed the road with slow, deliberate steps. She stopped before Ember and held out a covered takeaway plate. "Eat," she said. Ember froze. I can't pay." The woman smiled. "You've already paid with the way you look at food. My name is Auntie Margot, and I'm not here to collect anything from you." Ember took the plate carefully, like it was fragile glass. It was the best rice she'd ever tasted, hot, soft, and spiced just right. That same night, Auntie Margot returned with soap and bottled water. She helped Ember wash her mother's hands. "Come by tomorrow," she said. "You can help at the stall. I'll feed you." The next morning, Ember swept, scrubbed, and carried plates. By afternoon, she was back to scribbling numbers in the dirt beside the stand. Auntie Margot crouched beside her. "Where did you learn this?" Ember looked up. "I remember from school, before it ended." Margot didn't ask why it ended. She simply nodded. "Then it's time we open a new chapter, my child." A week later, Ember stood outside Harmony Bridge Public School, her heart galloping inside her chest like a wild horse. She wore a faded green uniform that hung off her thin frame like an oversized borrowed crown. The sleeves were too long. The shoes donated by Auntie Margot flopped as she walked. Still, Ember held her head high. The school smelled of chalk, iron windows, and long-forgotten dreams. Children whispered as she passed. Some laughed. One girl pointed. But Ember kept walking until she reached the front row of her new classroom and sat down, her cracked fingers wrapped around a borrowed pen. The first test of the day was English. The teacher barely finished the question before Ember's hands shot up. Her answer was perfect, clear, composed, and precise. Eyes turned, whispers swirled. She solved math like she was born counting stars. When asked to read aloud, her voice didn't falter. By the end of the week, teachers began pulling other students aside to say, "Watch her, she's special." But Ember never got carried away. Every evening, she went back to Auntie Margot's stall to wash plates, serve soup, and sweep the dusty floor. Her reward wasn't just food, it was Margot's quiet nod of approval and the smile she gave when Ember whispered, "Thank you." Yet fate has its cruel turns. One night, Auntie Margot returned holding a white envelope with foreign stamps. "My brother in Birmingham. He's finally calling me," she said, voice trembling. "You're leaving?" Ember asked, her breath catching. Margot nodded, her eyes wet. "I paid for your school till next term. Maybe someone else will pick up where I stop." Ember wanted to beg, "Take me with you." But instead she nodded, the quiet warrior she'd always been. 2 weeks after Auntie Margot left for England, Ember sat alone on the steps of Harmony Bridge School, clutching her nylon bag filled with worn-out books and hope. The air was thick with Lagos heat, and the headmistress's voice still rang in her ears. "Your name's not on the list anymore. No fees, no classroom." Ember had pleaded, offered to sweep the whole compound, to sit quietly at the back. But her voice had cracked, and the headmistress simply turned away. Now, Ember waited by the gate each day, watching other students laugh, complain about homework, and walk into classrooms she could no longer enter. Her school shoes, Margot's gift, began to fall apart. Her uniform faded from green to ash gray, but she wore it still because it made her feel like she hadn't lost everything. At night, the kiosk where she once slept was now occupied by a foul-smelling man with bloodshot eyes and a broken radio. She tried sleeping nearby once he chased her off with a belt. The old bakery corner, taken by glue-sniffing boys who eyed her like prey. Her mother hadn't changed, still talking to the wind, still calling herself Queen of Shadows. One night, Ember found her trying to feed a dead rat with crushed biscuit. Ember didn't flinch. She simply sat beside her and whispered, "I'm still here, Mama." The next morning, she put on her uniform again, walked to the school, and sat by the gate. Maybe someone would change their mind. Maybe someone would see her. But they didn't. The gates remained closed, so she sat against the wall, opened her last pencil stub, and began to solve equations in the dust. Dust that wind would later wipe away, as if trying to erase the memory of a brilliant girl left outside. They called it King's Crown Academy, a school so grand it looked like a palace. Gold-painted walls, glass windows that sparkled like water, and students who arrived in SUVs with drivers who opened the doors. To Ember, it was another world, one with gates taller than dreams. Yet every day her feet took her to its back fence where wild bushes grew and mosquitoes hummed. There, an old mango tree leaned over the back building. It had a crooked trunk and low branches, perfect for hiding. Just beyond the tree, a classroom's window was always slightly open. Ember climbed the ledge, balanced carefully, and listened. She couldn't see everything, but she could hear the teacher's voice, the scratch of chalk, the sound of multiplication tables. Ember would whisper answers under her breath, writing them on the backs of discarded flyers and tissue boxes she scavenged from trash bins. One Monday, as she traced a spelling word into a cereal box flap, a voice whispered behind her, "You're the one they always chase, right?" Ember froze. She turned slowly and saw a girl, polished shoes, cornrows parted neatly, name tag gleaming. Clarabelle Harrington. Ember stepped back. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to learn." Clarabelle tilted her head. "Why here?" Ember hesitated. "Because school left me, but I never left it." Clarabelle sat beside her without asking. "They call me dumb," she said. "My tutors quit. I don't get fractions." Ember blinked. "Show me." Clarabelle opened her book. "Explain this." Within minutes, Ember broke it down with ease. Clarabelle gasped. "I understand. You made it simple." Ember smiled shyly. "You're not dumb. You just needed the right voice." They stayed there until the lunch bell rang, and for the first time in a long time, Ember felt like the gate to something new had cracked just a little. Every day at noon, Ember and Clarabelle met beneath the mango tree. One came barefoot with a torn gown and a brain bursting with brilliance. The other came in polished shoes, cradling a lunchbox filled with spaghetti, sweet plantains, and questions. The schoolyard buzzed with children laughing and teachers hurrying between classes. But under the mango tree, time slowed. Clarabelle handed Ember textbooks while Ember turned pages like they were treasure maps. Fractions, tenses, comprehension, Algebra, Ember taught without hesitation. Her voice low, her explanations perfect. Clarabelle listened wide-eyed, writing faster than she ever had in class. "You're better than every teacher I've had," she whispered once. Ember just laughed. "I've had no teachers, just dust, hope, and a good memory." The more Clarabelle learned, the more she transformed. Her test scores rose. Her teachers praised her. Her father, Sir Reginald, began to notice, but Clarabelle kept her secret. "If he finds out, he'll end this," she warned Ember. Ember nodded. "Then don't tell him." "Not yet." But the world beneath the mango tree grew bigger. Clarabelle brought Ember a new pencil, a blue notepad, and one day a small hairbrush. Ember nearly cried. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. Clarabelle shook her head. "You're not cursed, Ember. You're magic." Ember's throat tightened. No one had ever called her anything like that. Not smart, not gifted magic. They shared food and stories. Ember told tales of stars that fell in love with gutter girls, and Clarabelle told secrets about her lonely mansion filled with chandeliers and silence. They were two girls from opposite worlds, and yet under that mango tree, they felt like sisters, not by blood, but by bond. And though they didn't speak it out loud, both were afraid of the day their secret world would come crashing down. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. The clouds hung lower than usual, as though the sky itself sensed what was coming. Clarabelle was already beneath the mango tree, lunchbox open, 2 spoons inside, one for her, one for Ember. But Ember was late. She never was. Clarabelle paced, checked her watch, then sat with her knees tucked to her chest. She had just started to worry when Ember appeared from behind the bushes, panting, barefoot, her face streaked with sweat and dust. "Mama had a fit," she said, breathless. "She ran into the road. I had to pull her out before a danfo hit her." Clarabelle hugged her tight. "I thought something happened to you." Ember smiled through exhaustion. "Nothing will stop me from coming here." Before either of them could speak again, the sound of engines cut through the air, SUVs. 3 of them rolling into the school compound like thunder. Teachers paused mid-sentence. Students stared. Even the security guard stood straighter. Clarabelle froze. "Oh no," she whispered. "My father." Sir Reginald Harrington stepped out, tall, dark, intimidating in his black senator wear and polished brown sandals. His presence swallowed the lawn. "Clarabelle," he called. She stood, hands trembling. Ember tried to retreat, but he had already seen her dusty, barefoot, holding a pencil and half a biscuit. "Who is this?" he demanded. Clarabelle stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. "This is Ember. She's my teacher, my friend." Sir Reginald stared as if Clarabelle had lost her mind. "You're what?" "She's why I've improved. She's why I understand anything." Ember tried to speak, but the words crumbled in her mouth. "Who are your parents, girl?" Sir Reginald asked. Ember's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know my father. My mother's ill. She begs near the Oshodi Bridge." A long, tense silence followed. Then quietly, Sir Reginald said, "Take me to her." They drove through the belly of Lagos, the parts the rich pretend not to see. Sir Reginald's SUV convoy glided past rusted gates, flooded gutters, and smoky roadside fires. Ember sat stiffly beside Clarabelle in the back seat, gripping the hem of her gown. Her voice trembled as she pointed down a narrow street near Ila Samaya. She's over there." They found Delphina crouched by a heap of refuse, laughing at a plastic bag that danced in the wind. Her dress was filthy, her hair a nest of chaos, and her arms were wrapped around a broken doll head. "Mommy," Ember whispered, stepping out. "I brought someone to help." Delphina looked up, blinked, then said, "Did you bring back the moon?" "I left it in your pocket." Sir Reginald stood beside her silently. The billionaire, who had dined with governors and CEOs, now crouched beside a madwoman and offered her bottled water. Then he turned to his assistant. "Call Dr. Amina, psychiatric unit. Full care, tonight." Ember stared at him, disbelief swirling in her chest. "Please," she said. "I don't want money, I just want her to stop hurting." He looked her in the eye. "You'll get more than money. You'll get dignity." Later that night, Delfina was taken gently into an ambulance, her eyes wide but calm for once. Ember stood on the roadside watching it drive away, her feet still in dust, but her soul lighter than ever before. Sir Reginald turned to her, voice deep but warm. "You're not going back to the streets, Ember. Not now. Not ever." She blinked up at him. "Then where will I go?" He placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Home. With me. You have a father now." Ember awoke in a bed with clean sheets for the first time in her life. The Harrington mansion in Ikoyi stretched higher than any place she'd ever imagined, a glass staircase, a chandelier like falling stars, a garden that smelled like jasmine and fresh-cut memories. But it wasn't the house that left her speechless. It was Clarabelle waiting for her with a pressed uniform and a toothbrush with her name on it. "Ready?" she asked. Ember hesitated, fingers trembling as she touched the clean blue and white uniform of King's Crown Academy. "I look like a student," she whispered. Clarabelle laughed softly. "You are one. You belong here now." That morning, they walked through the front gate together, two girls in matching uniforms, hand in hand. Students gawked, whispers buzzing like flies. "Isn't that the street girl? What's she doing here?" Ember kept walking, shoulders squared, face calm. When her first class began, she didn't wait for an invitation. She raised her hand with confidence. "Math, English, science," she answered, like the subjects were old friends. The teachers were stunned. The principal called Sir Reginald. "Where did you find this child?" he asked. "I didn't find her," he replied. "She was always there. We just finally opened the gate." Meanwhile, Ember's mother, Delfina, began her treatment under the care of Dr. Amina. It would be a long journey and months of therapy and medication, but for the first time in years, hope stirred behind her eyes. And every Saturday, Ember visited her, carrying books and sweet bread. On her fourth visit, Delfina whispered, "You look like someone I used to know, someone who lit candles in the dark." Ember hugged her tight. "That someone's still here, Mama. She just needed help to shine." It had been 3 months since Ember walked through the front gate of King's Crown Academy, but it felt like a lifetime ago. Now she sat beneath the mango tree, its roots trimmed, the grass well kept, and a wooden bench placed beneath its shade. Beside her sat Clarabelle, scribbling a silly doodle into a new shared notebook. It showed 2 stick figures, one barefoot, one in a blazer, both holding hands under a tree. Ember laughed quietly. "You didn't give me hair again." Clarabelle grinned. "It's a style choice." They sat in silence for a while, the warm Lagos breeze weaving through their thoughts. "You know," Clarabelle finally said, "if you hadn't broken the rules and watched through that window, I might still be failing." Ember looked down at her hands, the same ones that once washed plates and scribbled equations into dust. "And if you hadn't looked past the dirt, I'd still be outside the fence." That evening, Sir Reginald called Ember into his study. He handed her a new tablet loaded with every textbook she would need. "Your teachers say you're the brightest student they've had in 10 years, he said, his voice warm. "I believe you're going to change more than just this school." Ember lowered her eyes. "I don't know how to repay you, sir." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Shine. That's all I ask. Let the world see what I saw that day under the mango tree." That night, Ember sat alone in the garden, staring at the stars. "Dear God," she whispered, "you gave me food when I starved, a home when I was lost, and a friend when I was invisible. I don't know why you chose me, but I'll make it matter." Her voice was steady now. "My name is Ember Whitmore. I'm not the daughter of madness anymore. I am the daughter of grace." And so the street girl became a scholar, a sister, and a story worth telling, a flame that never went out. The end. What's your take on the Mango Tree Promise? Did Ember's journey move you the way it moved us? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share what inspired or surprised you most. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African stories that remind us that hope can grow even in the hardest places.